Okay, so first I'm gonna go through um, the what we did on the Amud Beis and Daf Beis Amud Aleph about the four types of Nizikin and then the subcategories and um, stuff like that we did before we actually went through the Mishnah. Hey, I'm gonna go through the first line of Gemara there, and then I'll explain. So Arba Avos Nizikin for Avos in this case it means like categories of Nizikin of damages are Hashor, the ox, Ve'abor, and the pit, Ve'amave, and the person, Ve'ha hever, and the fire. So the way that Rabbi Jacob split it up is first we split it up between um, the stuff that your property damages and a person actually damaging it. So so first I'll go with and I'll explain what that means. But okay, so I'm gonna first explain the things that your property damages. So the order that he explained it was hever, which is fire. So hever is the first thing he explained, which means fire. Okay. For hever, um, your putter on anything that is tamon. Putter for tamon. Tamon means hidden. So what it means by hidden is anything that is covered. So if let's say you burn a room, and in that room there's a backpack. Whatever's in the backpack, you're putter for paying. You don't have to pay for stuff that are hidden inside the backpack. You have to pay for the bag, but not the stuff that are in it. Even if the guy purposely burned it because he knew the stuff in the bag, it doesn't matter. If it's covered, then he's putter from the payment. In any case, if it's covered, then he's putter. The next category is bore, pit. Now, pit doesn't not necessarily have to be an actual pit. It's just the category of damage. We just call it pit because there's so many cases that are similar to the pit, and I'll explain what that means. So let's say you dig a pit, obviously not like such a deep one because then wouldn't make sense in my case. Like I don't know, basically like a pothole in the middle of the street, and your donkey trips on the pothole. That's the what pit means in this case. Something that like someone would trip on. So that could also mean like a water spill or something like that. If you could trip on it, then it's in the category of pit. So if you have any of these, if there's a if you you if you created the water spill, or you made the pit, or you made the pothole, or whatever, you're putter for any of the vessels that are on the thing carrying. So, for example, in the case of the donkey, if the donkey is carrying, I don't know, like glass pots, or I don't know, bowls, right, and it trips and the vessels break, then you don't have to pay for those vessels. Only for the donkey, let's say, getting injured or something like that. The actual thing that was tripped, not the stuff that was carrying. So if for example, if somebody trips on a water spill, then you would have to. Well, this gets into the categories of paying for another person, so it doesn't really apply here. Okay, so let's say, I don't know, somebody's animal slips on water that you spilled, then you would have to pay for the injuries of the animal, or if it dies, then you would have to pay for the whole animal, but not anything that the animal is carrying. You're putter from anything that it's carrying. Okay, the last category of these damages of your property are shore, which means um, ox. So and in ox, there's three categories within ox. There is the first one is Karen, which means horn. The second one is Shane, which is tooth. And the third one is Regel, which literally means foot. Alright. And for each of these categories, there's a different halachas. So I'm going to separate these two because they have basically the same halacha. So I'm going to put it here, and we'll go through Karen first, horn. Now, what this really means is goring. Goring or anything like biting, kicking, anything that it's like purposely hurting. You could say, or like anything that's with the purpose of hurting. Okay, so anything that's for the purpose of hurting falls into this category of Karen, horn. So that could mean your cow gores something else, or even if your animal bites it or something like that. If it's or if your animal eats another animal, well, it might fall into the category of Shane if he did it for pleasure, for actually just consuming something. But if it's more like violent, you would have to see case by case. But usually, if it's more violent and it's more for and just the purpose of hurting something else, then it falls in the category of Karen. So this category has two different halachas. So the first two offenses that the animal has for and the animal does, and it falls into the Karen, the first two times it does it, the owner only has to pay half the hezek, half the damage. So the first two times he pays half. But then and this category, first two times he pays half, is called tam, which means literally means simple. Simple because it's more regular. This is like, okay, he gored whatever. It's an animal, so like you can't fully control it all the time. So it's more normal. Okay, first two times, then you only have to pay half because it's more normal. But once it goes a third time, we categorize the animal as already being known to gore. So we basically appoint it, so to say, as someone as an animal that gores. So the third time, you have to pay full. And this category is called moed. Like Chol HaMoed are the appointed days in between the Yom Tovim. So moed is appointed. So this is an appointed gore. The animal is known to gore, and so when he since it's an appointed gore, the owner should be more careful with with his animal. He knows that his animal is known to gore, so you should keep it away from people or other animals, and so that it doesn't damage anything. So once again, for Karen, which is in the category of shore, the first two times it falls into the category of simple, tam, and he only has to pay half the first two times. And the third time, he pays a third or more times, he pays full because he's moed, he's an appointed gorer, appointed damager. The next two categories are shein, tooth, and regel, foot. And they both have the same halacha. So first I'm going to explain what they mean, and then I'll explain the halacha. So shein, tooth, means enjoyment, meaning benefit. So if the animal gets benefit from anything, so that's why I said before that it could mean that if it eats it, it was just eating it for benefit, not for the sake of hurting, only for actually eating and for actually eating an animal for lunch or whatever it may be. Or it doesn't have to. It doesn't always have to be eating. It's called shein, tooth, because it's associated with food, which is which is associated with benefit and stuff like that. So it could be back scratching or something like that is also in the category of benefit. Okay, the last one is foot, literally foot, regel, which since you walk with your feet and walking is a normal thing, then this means normal behavior. Normal behavior. So anything that is normal, like it's just walking, or I don't know, it's just going on its way, doing whatever animals do, then it falls into the category of regel. Now that can't mean it's normal for it to hurt another animal because it's a lion. No, it doesn't matter. That's not in the category. So that's more Karen. But for regel, it's more just walking or roaming around or something like that. And if it damages, then there's it's the same halacha for both. So for both of these, if they damage, then if it's Bereshus Arabim, then he's putter. But if it's Bereshus Hayachid, then he has to pay full, and he's automatic moed. Full. So once again, for both the shein and regel, since both these things are more normal, really, I would think like shein is kind of like regel. Like it's kind of the same category. Regel is normal, so it's normal for the animal to benefit and stuff like that. So that's why they have the same halacha. So both of these have the same halacha, which is Bereshus Harabim, in the public domain. They are putter. The owner is putter for anything that the animal benefits from, or with anything that the animal damages while doing normal behavior. But Bereshus Yachid, if the animal goes and sneaks into somebody else's property, private property, then the owner has to pay full, because it's an automatic moed. Because I mean, my logic of thinking is that since, right, even though these categories are more normal, regular normal, right, it's not normal for the animal to go into somebody else's property. So because it's not normal for somebody else, for the animal to go into somebody else's property, then I would think, then yes, you have to pay full. But if it's Bereshus Harabim and there's like no like fences, nothing, and it consumes something, or I don't know, or if it walks and breaks something, it's not the animal's fault, and it's not the owner's fault either. Okay, next, so that's done with your property damaging. So that's if your property damages anything. But now, let's say you damage something. So if you damage something, which is in the category of mave, mave just means a person. So if you damage someone, then you have to pay five. There's 5 things you have to pay. There's 5 things you have to pay. Now, the 5 things can depend on the situation. Depending on the situation, you would have to pay more for one category and then another. So it all depends, or you might not even pay anything. If and I'll explain how that is possible and why that makes sense while I explain what these 5 categories are.